Laura's Gift by Anna Marie O'Brien. Chapter 10. The Red Thief Returns. Two of the wolves howled, hiked on their haunches, and noses pointed to the pinky plum blue sky. Such powerful songs came from deep within their bellies. The thought of them so close, standing under the birches Zara and I had passed, alone, in the dark of night, frightened me. I cradled Chara even closer to me. "I thought wolves were afraid of us."
"Normally they are," Papa replied, putting on his coat.
"Then why are they coming so close?"
But I answered my own question. They must be desperate to eat.
"Don't worry," Papa headed for the rifle cabinet. They'll learn soon enough that they aren't welcome here."
On cue, Zar flew over the birthing stall fence and headed for the door to join Papa, his nose poking the latch and his feet dancing.
"Niet, boy, stay," Papa said.
Zar pawed at the door, and the fur of his neck on his neck bristled.
"Let him hunt, Tayatia. He wants to go with you."
Papa grabbed a lead and dragged Zar, his feet flying like mad, his claws scarring up the dirt floor to a spot where he tied him to one of the brass rings attached to the wall. How Zar struggled to free himself, pulling and twisting and leaping toward the door. His front feet pawed the air like a rabid dog.
"Don't let him out," Papa said. "He'll get in the way."
"Zar has experience with the Red Thief."
"Zar's got experience, all right," Papa said. "Lucky for him. Boreai came when he did."
"Who told you?"
Papa kissed the hunting horn that hung around his neck 3 times, and then he disappeared. The kennel door slammed shut, followed by the music of his horn and a quick boom. The noise from the gun shook my insides. I braced myself for the next one. And even though pups are born deaf, I covered Chara's little ears just the same. Boom! Rang the second shot. I prepared myself for a third one and closed my eyes, my whole body cringing. Just like Papa had promised, the howling stopped. Little by little, the borzoi settled down. Except for Zar, his ears still stood alert, his focus unbreakable. Papa returned, kicking the snow off his felt boots. He wore a look of defeat on his face.
"They got away."
"Tayatia, you've got to train Zar," I said. "Look at how much he wants to hunt."
I expected Papa to walk away from me as if he were deaf to my question.
"Did you see how big the Red Thief was? He tears Zar to shreds."
Part of me wanted to stick up for Zar, and another part of me was afraid to lose him. What if Papa was right? Not long after Papa left to send a telegram to the Count with good news about the birth of the pups, the Zvan of the stable bells pulsed. Ding, ding, dong, ding, ding, dong, ding, ding, dong. And even as the bells continued to ring like a chorus of singing icons, Alexander rushed in, wiping his tired, sleepy eyes.
"Did the pups come early?"
The tone of his voice sounded worried.
"Everything's fine," I assured him. "You're always right when where you're needed most, Larochka. You're like a crystal ball."
I needed to be more careful. How could I keep my visions a secret from him? Alexander felt Zola's abdomen first to make sure that there were no more pups hidden inside, just as Papa and I had done, and then Alexander inspected each of the 6 pups nestled close to Zola.
"They all look healthy."
He patted Zara and Zola on the head.
"Except this one."
I lifted her from my lap.
"Her name's Chara."
Alexander's eyes widened.
"I don't dare ask you how you came up with that name, nor do I doubt she'll work her charm over all of us."
Alexander knelt down beside me. Gently, he took her from my hands and cradled her against his neck.
"What happened?"
"Zola rejected her," I answered. Alexander kissed her on the rump before handing her back to me.
"Then she'd better work her charm over Zola soon. She'll need help over the first few weeks."
I laid Chara across my chest and ran my finger along her spine.
"She shows promise."
Alexander ran his finger along her spine too and nodded.
"She does."
"Did you see any wolves?"
I asked Alexander. Zar's eyes shot up and he bounded over to the window.
"Unfortunately not."
Alexander joined Zar and peered through the veil of lacy frost that covered the glass panes. He stood there and wiped away the frost with his bare hands, creating visible gaps here and there as he looked out.
"I heard the Red Thief weaseled his way into the stable and got to our livestock again."
Even in his frustration, Alexander's voice was kind and gentle.
When the wind dies down, we'll get the Red
Thief. Alexander said it more to Zar than to me, and then glided his hand along the arch of his back. Right, boy? Tsar responded with a little dance, and then my heart danced too.
Have you talked to my papa about training Tsar?
Don't worry, Larochka. I know how important this is to you, he answered. I will. I glanced up at the icon of the mother staring down at her child with such love in her eyes. She reminded me of my own mama, and she also reminded me of the kind of love I had for Tsar.
I don't know how I'd feel my days without the dogs.
Me too, Alexander said. Father begs me to join him and take over the bell foundry with my older brother, promising me there is no other work more fulfilling than making bells for the Tsar's churches. I hoped that day wouldn't come too soon. With Alexander gone, the Woronzova kennel would be like a crown without the jewels.
Would you like to live in Moscow with your brother?
For now, no. Father has agreed to give me a chance to live my dream and make something of this kennel. I have 2 years. If I don't produce borzoi worthy of the Tsar, I agree to join him.
You'll succeed, I told him. I'll do whatever I can to help you.
You should get some sleep, Alexander said. Your eyes look tired.
Chara needs me.
I'll see to her myself, Alexander said. I give you my word. A promise from a noble meant something. Keeping one was a higher honor than dying for the Tsar. Golden rule number 1, and my personal favorite, because this rule gave everyone willing to live by his word a chance to be noble, whether born into nobility or not. Alexander took Chara from my hands and cuddled her against his chest. Take Tsar for protection.
Do you think the wolves will be back?
They wouldn't dare with Tsar by your side, he said. For certain the Red Thief would remember him. On my way home, I stopped at the chapel to light a candle for Chara. Part of me hoped I might find Ruslan. While Pushkin's words touched my soul and gave me strength, Ruslan's words made me think. I approached the icon of the Virgin Mary, bent down on both knees, and genuflected. I walked over to the candles and pulled out a long, slender taper from the glass jar. I placed it over a burning flame until it caught fire, and then lit a candle for Chara. As I thought of her pudgy little face, I lit another candle and another, until all the candles had been lit and glowing brightly. You're going to burn the place down with so many candles, Ruslan said when he entered the chapel. I told him about the Red Thief returning, about Zola and the birth, as well as about the bet I had with Papa, and how we almost lost Chara.
This pup has to live. I don't know why just yet. Even Papa helped.
Maybe your father's coming around.
Maybe.
I sensed Papa was struggling with something. Change is what we all fear at some level. Once we learn to embrace it, only then can it become our friend. It's the first step, but a difficult one. I wondered if the first step to change was part of a bigger plan. And did God play a part in that plan?
Does God speak to you through your work?
Ruslan chuckled. That's an odd question.
It would seem so to me.
Nobody could paint figures like Ruslan did, figures that looked so saintly they could float off the wood they were painted on and join us for tea unless God had to say in it. Ruslan looked around as if he worried someone might overhear him, and instead of speaking his answer, he nodded his head and then he whispered, I like to think that God has a hand in my work.
My mama believes in such things too, I whispered back to him.
What about you? He asked. When I thought of Papa and his rules, the very ones my ancestors had passed down for generations, I knew I fought to fit in and be just like Papa and all the other kennel stewards before him. But every time I had a vision, I saw nothing evil in using it to guide me to do the right thing. And every time I kept quiet, I felt like I was betraying my gift. My eyes dropped to the floor. I don't know what to think. In these times, a gift from God can be dangerous, Ruslan said. One shouldn't fight it. One should use the gift for good.
My mama says the same thing.
Still, I was afraid. I didn't want to risk losing everything that mattered to me. Alexander, my family, Zola and the dogs, and especially Tsar.
And that's the end of chapter 10.